What is good, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video. A video I have been waiting quite a while to do. Technically speaking, almost a whole year to do. It is my 2024 how I would book the AEW Continental Classic 2. I'm sitting here after UFC 309, a little bit upset that Stipe Miocic lost. And I definitely need some cheering up. And I thought that this is a great way to do it. I've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. I had a lot of fun watching last year's inaugural AEW Continental Classic. I had a lot of fun making a fantasy book and how I'd book the inaugural Continental Classic. And we're here today to do it again for the second ever Continental Classic. Before we get in depth with my fantasy booking, we got some things to go through. Thing number one, the 2023 field. Several names will not be in the 2024 field. The 2023 field consisted of Andrade, Bryan Danielson, Eddie Kingston, Daniel Garcia, Claudio Castagnoli, Brody King, John Moxley, Swerve Strickland, Jay Lethal, Jay White, Roosh, and Mark Briscoe. Out of these 12 individuals, at least 3 are completely out. Andrade, not even in the company anymore, and Danielson and Kingston are out with injury. And I could make an argument for 4 others. Obviously, the most notable one being John Moxley, because he is the World Heavyweight Champion. Probably needs to worry about being the World Heavyweight Champion. So, before we get into who I would like to see in this year field, we have a lot of honorable mentions to go through because it was a very difficult process in doing this. I've been sitting for the past week, almost every day, going on the AEW roster page, scrolling through and thinking this over thoroughly. And so, the names I'm about to mention, I would love to see in the tournament. I will also, let me just say this straight up already. I feel that no matter what happens, this year's Continental Classic will be good. It's going to be very difficult to screw it up, but just this video is my personal preference and what I would like to see happen. But I do think in general it'll be fine and whatever. So the names I'm about to mention on the honorable mention list, though, for one rhyme or reason, probably won't be in the tournament, but they're an honorable mention, meaning I would like to see them in it. So it is what it is. Starting this honorable mention list off, we got Bandito and Samoa Joe, who are both out with injury. Samoa Joe, I don't know if it's technically an injury, but he has not been on TV in a while. Bandito, would love to see him back soon. Next name, Katsuyori Shibata. Has not had the best AEW run, but anytime he competes in the ring, it's always worth watching. He just has not been consistently been booked the best in AEW. He's competed in several G1 climaxes, so he would fit very well in the Continental Classic, but I just don't know if they're willing to put him in that spot. 2 names that if you were to ask anybody to book their version of the Continental Classic, one of the 2 is making it, but I have a reason for them not being in it. Ricochet and Will Ospreay, I feel that they're just tied into other storyline things right now that would keep them away from this. But, again, they would obviously do very well in this tournament. Next 2 names, same thing for them, but they have a more legitimate reason in not being in it. That being Konosuke Takeshita and someone that was in last year's tournament, Daniel Garcia. Again, they can end up in the tournament in real life. The only reason I don't have them in it, and I would love to see Takeshita in the Continental Classic, but Takeshita's an international champion right now. Daniel Garcia, I more than likely will imagine will be the next TNT champion. I would much rather see them worry about the championships that they had. And then the last 3 names, there's no legitimate reason for them not being in it. It's just somebody, not everybody can make it. Lance Archer, who is always, again, anytime he competes in AEW, and more so ROH, because I watch ROH every week, always worth keeping an eye on. Brian Keith, who I kind of want to break out of the light of the learning tree crap, and this would be a great spot for it, but I don't know if that'll happen. And this last name, I was going back and forth with if he should be in this tournament or not. And I think I decided on someone else, this being Kyle O'Reilly. And it definitely hurt doing it. But he can fit like a glove in this damn tournament. So, enough of the honorable mentions. Like I said, all of them are worthy of being in the tournament. And if they're in the tournament, I would give it a thumbs up. But I felt for some rhyme or reason they probably shouldn't or couldn't be. Now, let's get to who I want to see in the tournament, or how I would book the tournament. In the blue block, the last name that I wrote down, one of the newest signings of AEW, and he's been a great signing thus far, and he's competed in the G1 Climax before, Shelton Benjamin. He's had a great run in AEW thus far, and this gives him some time to put on some more one-on-one action that he's been doing and consistently keep doing that. Next three names, I definitely want to see in this tournament. I suggested them in last year's tournament and was denied. First one being Buddy Matthews. I want to see him in singles competition a lot more. It's just with the House of Black, I like the House of Black. It's just they always are swerving into different directions and you never really know what to expect from them, which I just want them to either be consistently a tag team or consistently a singles or consistently a trio, which I think their trios days have long past, but I think it's time that we get a proper Buddy Matthews singles run. Next name, Roderick Strong. It has been weird, and I'm going to go on the record of saying this because it's a bit of a joke, but I always have this saying about jokes. Behind every joke is a little bit of truth. For the past 3 years, this is going back to his WWE run, AEW and WWE have booked this man to be in a wheelchair and to not compete. Now, I will give AEW a little bit of credit because this year they kind of dropped all that and he's been consistently competing in the ring, and this would be the perfect time to see him a lot more. And I fully imagine that the MJF stuff with him will be done by the time the Continental Classic is going on. Next name, would love to see in this. And again, he's kind of tied up in something storyline-wise, but I think it should be not necessarily dropped, but put him in the damn tournament. The Bastard Pac. Next name was in last year's tournament, did very well, but could do better this year, that being Roosh. And then the top name of the blue block, who did very well in last year's tournament as well, Jay White. Personal favorite matches that I'd like to see in this block include of the Bastard Pac and Buddy Matthews. Roderick Strong and Roosh, which is the main reason I wanted to see these two in this same side. But again, all these matchups I feel would personally deliver. As now we go to the other side, we go to the gold block. The obvious name in the gold block is the current Continental Champion, Kazuchika Okada, which I will say his run in AEW, and I hate using this word because I use it a lot because it can mean several different things. His run in AEW has been very weird, very similar to Roderick Strong, to where he's supposed to be the best wrestler in the world, and sometimes you forget that because he's not consistently wrestling, but over this next month or so, I imagine that will change, and he's the dang champion, so he'd be defending it. Now, who should be his competitors? Claudio Castagnoli, his Death Rider partner, the Bastard Pac, is on the other side. Let's get Claudio on this side. He was also in last year's tournament. The other two that I'm about to mention were also in last year's tournament. Mark Briscoe and Brody King. Mark Briscoe has mentioned several times wanting to compete in the Continental Classic again, and he's more well-rounded as a singles competitor, and I would like to see him again. Brody King, I feel that he's underrated as a singles competitor because, like I said, he gets linked into the trios and tag team action, and it was kind of a bit of a breakout for him in last year's tournament. He even beat the champion, Eddie Kingston, which technically wasn't the champion. It's a weird concept because Kingston had 2 titles going into it, so this technically was the champion. Last 2 names, the Beast Mortos. His LFI partner, Roosh, is on the other side. He is on this side. Let the Beast loose. Always love seeing him compete in the ring, and this will be a perfect place to showcase that. And the last name that I will mention, Hangman Adam Page. Storyline-wise, I imagine that him and Jay White will probably be wrapped up at Full Gear, but I kind of have it marked out in my mind that he wants in this tournament to keep Jay White from winning it. Granted, they're on the opposite side, but, you know, it's kind of teasing the match happening, but we're getting the match again at Full Gear anyway, so we don't necessarily have to have the match, but he's just such a madman, and this gives him a chance to run wild on several different competitors. Top matches that I would like to see, I won't lie, I have a lot more wrote down than I did for the blue block. First matchup, Beast Mortos and Brody King, I feel, would be a great match. Mark Briscoe and Claudio Castagnoli, two men that know each other very well from their Ring of Honor days when it was the Briscoes versus the Kings of Wrestling, and it is a match that was supposed to happen at last year's Death Before Dishonor, but did not due to Mark Briscoe's injury, so we're wrapping that up and having them compete. Here, speaking of wrapping things up, Kazuchika Okada versus Claudio Castagnoli, two, because they had a match earlier this year that ended in a draw, and we can get a definitive winner here. I know that draws can happen here, but I imagine they wouldn't want to do the same thing twice. Last match, and again, it's kind of tying things up, Kazuchika Okada versus Hangman Page. We saw the two interact several times when Hangman was in and out of the Elite, and Okada kind of took his role in the group. And this match, if I was to personally do it and how I could potentially see it happening, is they have their match, it ends in a draw, and then they meet up in the final, the block finals, because I would be shocked if either two were to lose a match. So the only proper match that they would lose would be against one another. Now we get to my finals. My suggested finals is a match that has happened several times, but has not happened in AEW yet. Representing the blue block, Jay White. I've been sitting here for the past almost 2 years now, talking about Jay White's AEW run, and it just has been such an up and down slope. I think the lowest point was this time last year, going out of Full Gear, and he lost the AEW World Title match, and I just hated it so much. And since then, you can't really point at like one thing that has been absolutely great. You want to talk about Trios title run? It was what it was. I think that it would be a bit of a redeeming moment, redemption arc, to have him in the finals, because he lost in the block finals last year in a triple threat match. But this year, get him to the actual finals against a longtime foe, not Hangman Adam Page, but the current champion, Kazuchika Okada. I'd be shocked and surprised if Okada does not make the finals, regardless of who his competition is. You know, it could happen, but I doubt it. I imagine Okada would be in the finals, but is reliving a rivalry that we've seen several times happen in New Japan. They had several big-time matchups in New Japan, and now it is happening in AEW. And I am okay with either man winning, but I feel I have a bit of a bias for Jay White and wanting him to have a redemption moment, a redemption arc moment. And also the good thing about this is the tides are turning. In New Japan, it was always, everyone was cheering for Okada. Everyone was always booing Jay White. Another way of looking at it is Okada was always face, Jay White was always heel. Now the tides are turned. So it's an interesting dynamic for it. So that is my suggestions for how I would book the second ever AEW Continental Classic. Like I said, I think that whatever happens, I will enjoy it. The good thing about the Continental Classic is it's just straight up wrestling. We don't have to worry about stupid storylines and stupid stuff getting in the way. That was what made last year's tournament so well. It was just straight up wrestling. It's also good that we had last year's tournament and we can understand and see how the points are counted, how the matchups are set up, how and when the matches are going to happen. We have the format laid out now, where last year it was still a bit confusing. But I want to go ahead and get this video out there before they make any announcements for who's going to be in the tournament. That way I can have some originality. I know that I had the honorable mention list of people, but like I said, I'd be okay with any of those people being in the tournament. That's why they're on the honorable mention list. I would like to see them in the tournament, but there's something in the way of them being in the tournament. So I had a lot of fun making this. I've been preparing this for like a month, and I saw someone else's video on the time. I'm like, let me just go ahead and get mine up. And like I said, I need some cheering up. I've kind of already forgot about UFC 309 now because I've been thinking about this. So I did enjoy making this. I will enjoy watching this tournament. At some point this week, I will have AEW Full Gear predictions up. I'm starting to hear some loud noises, so let me just go ahead and wrap the rest of this video up because I do appreciate y'all for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one because I'm out.